In 2022, IBM sold its crown jewel AI division, Watson Health, for just $1 billion. They'd spent $4 billion building it, a $3 billion loss, written off like a bad dream. But the real story isn't about the money. It's about a room in 2004, where a single observation doomed a tech giant for a decade. This is the story of how IBM's brilliant, hubris-fueled AI gamble almost sank Big Blue, and how its collapse traces back to one critical mistake made in a boardroom years before the first dollar was spent. They thought they were selling the future. They were selling a parlor trick. The year was 2004. IBM research manager Charles Lickel was having dinner with his team. Mid-meal, he noticed something strange. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Every head was turned toward the TVs, watching Ken Jennings' historic Jeopardy winning streak. Lickel saw more than a TV show. He saw IBM's next chess match. The idea was passed up to Paul Horn, head of IBM Research. He loved it. But there was a problem. Finding a team willing to tackle it was surprisingly hard. Most researchers looked at Jeopardy and saw a nightmare. Chess was logical. Language was messy, ambiguous, and full of traps. Their first attempt, a system called Piquant, was a joke. It got about 35% of Jeopardy clues right. To win, you needed to answer correctly over 90% of the time and do it in seconds. The project was seen as impossible to solve. IBM was throwing resources at a science experiment. Then, David Ferrucci stepped in. He agreed to lead a small, stubborn team. Their secret wasn't a single brilliant algorithm. It was brute force. Watson would run over 100 different language analysis techniques simultaneously on every clue. If multiple independent methods converged on the same answer, Watson's confidence soared. It was a massive, parallel bet on probability. To house this beast, they needed a hardware monster. 90 servers, 16 terabytes of RAM. All Jeopardy data lived in memory. Hard drives were too slow, and it had an unfair physical advantage. Watson's buzzer could fire in 8 milliseconds after the signal. A human brain needs over 100 milliseconds just to perceive the light. By the time Ken Jennings' hand moved, Watson was already talking. In February 2011, the world watched. Watson didn't just win, it annihilated the two greatest human champions. It was a triumphant $3 million spectacle. But here's the part nobody talks about. The victory proved almost nothing about real-world intelligence. Watson was a specialist in one domain, finding patterns in a vast, preloaded library of text to answer trivia. It didn't understand meaning. It couldn't learn from a single new conversation. It was a lookup engine with a fantastic user interface. But IBM had just marketed it as the future of all AI. Enter Ginni Rometty. She became IBM's CEO on January 1, 2012, with Watson's commercialization as her flagship project. For nearly 3 decades, she'd risen through IBM's ranks. Her 2015 roadmap was clear. Pivot from hardware to software and analytics. Watson was the centerpiece of that pivot. Her first big move? Partnering with Memorial Sloan Kettering to apply Watson to lung cancer treatment. It was the ultimate proof of concept. Use AI to save lives, and prove the multi-billion-dollar bet was worth it. But in a hospital, close enough doesn't cut it. This is the turning point. The decision that would cost them billions was made here. IBM tried to force a trivia show champion into a doctor's coat. The architecture that won on TV was fundamentally wrong for medicine. Watson for oncology wasn't reading new medical studies in real time. It was trained on a limited set of synthesized, expert cases from a few doctors at Sloan Kettering. It couldn't handle ambiguity, conflicting data, or the messy reality of patient histories. Doctors found its recommendations often incomplete or even dangerously wrong. Internal documents later showed IBM was using Watson Wins marketing slides even as problems mounted in pilot hospitals. The gap between the demo and reality was becoming a chasm. But here's the deeper lesson. This wasn't just a tech failure. It was a leadership trap. By 2017, Rometty's IBM had posted 24 consecutive quarters of revenue decline. Watson Health was burning cash, not making it. The company's stock had fallen about 10% since she took over. Mass layoffs rippled through the organization. The grand analytics pivot, symbolized by Watson, was stalling out in the real world. The core mistake was one of translation. IBM's engineers solved a narrow, spectacular problem. The sales team then sold it as a general-purpose mind. They confused a winning trick with a new kind of intelligence. By 2020, The writing was on the wall. Ginni Rometty stepped down as CEO. The visionary who tied her brand to Watson left with a legacy of decline. The bet that was supposed to define her tenure had instead defined a decade of retreat. 2 years later, the final tally came in. IBM sold Watson Health to private equity firm Francisco Partners. The price? $1 billion. On a $4 billion development cost, it was a spectacular wipeout. The division was renamed Meritive. The magic was gone. What remained was a cautionary tale about overpromising and under-delivering on the grandest scale. The Jeopardy machine that cost IBM 4 times what it ever brought in. So what's the real lesson from the rooms where these decisions were made? It's not that AI can't work. It's that spectacle and substance are different currencies. A brilliant demo in a controlled environment is worth almost nothing in the wild, chaotic world of real business problems. IBM's fatal error wasn't technological. It was believing that proving you could do the hard thing meant you could also do the useful thing. They spent a decade learning that the distance between a game show and a hospital is measured in billions of dollars.